Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. They say a marriage dies in silence, not in screams, but I heard ours dying with every quiet dinner, every forced kiss, and every night we slept side by side but 1,000 miles apart. My name is Alina Hart. I'm 32, married to a man who used to worship the ground I walked on. Now, I can't tell if his touch is desire or dominance. It all changed the night he came home late again, shirt wrinkled, smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't mine. My husband, Marcus, had this way of locking eyes with me when he wanted something intense, commanding, but tonight, it felt cold. Detached. He didn't kiss me. He didn't speak much. He just stared. And then, with a voice as steady as a heartbeat, he said it. "Open your legs." And I obeyed. Not because I wanted to. Not out of lust or love or anything remotely close to passion. I obeyed because I didn't know how to say no anymore. Because in that moment, I was clinging to a ghost of the man I used to love. And a part of me, God help me, hoped he'd see the pain in my eyes, the loneliness etched into my bones, and remember what we used to be. Marcus wasn't always like this. We met in college. He used to leave notes in my pockets, hold my hand in crowded rooms, dance with me barefoot in the kitchen. He once flew across 3 states just to surprise me on my birthday. But now? He barely notices when I cry in the shower, or when I don't eat. The silence between us has grown louder than any fight we ever had. But something's wrong. Something deeper than just growing apart. He's hiding things. He flinches when I touch his phone, and he disappears for hours without a word. He started locking the guest room. Who locks a guest room in their own home? And then there's the night I found a gold bracelet under our bed. Not mine. Not his mother's. It smelled like roses. The kind I used to wear before I gave up trying. I started watching him more closely. Noticing things I ignored before. The bruises on his wrists. The way he checks the locks 3 times before going to bed. The whispers I hear from the other side of the bathroom door when he thinks I'm asleep. And now, there's this letter. Folded, hidden in the drawer of my bedside table. Not addressed to me. Not in his handwriting. It simply reads, "Don't trust him. You're in danger. You have no idea who he really is." The letter stayed in my nightstand drawer for 3 days before I touched it again. I couldn't bring myself to read it. I wanted to believe it was a cruel prank or a bad joke, something my mind had conjured out of fear and restlessness. But I felt it, something had shifted in our home. In him. In me. Marcus was trying, in his own way. Or maybe he was just trying not to be noticed. He made coffee one morning, the way I used to like it, almond milk, no sugar, but he didn't sit with me. Just left it on the table and walked out like a stranger who once knew me. That night, we touched again. Or maybe it was just skin meeting skin. His hands slid over my waist like they remembered a map they hadn't followed in a long time. I closed my eyes and let myself feel it, not because it felt good, but because I was desperate to feel anything. I searched his face in the dark, looking for the boy I fell in love with. But Marcus didn't kiss me. Not once. Later, I found him in the living room staring at the fire, a glass of scotch in hand, jaw tight. His wedding ring glinted in the light, but his eyes were somewhere else. Distant. Guilt-ridden. Or haunted, I couldn't tell which. I sat beside him, close enough to touch but not quite touching. "Do you still want me?" I asked, the words slipping out like a breath I'd been holding for months. He looked at me then, and for a moment, I thought he might say yes. That he might reach for me, tell me he missed me, that he was sorry for the distance, the silence, the cold. But he didn't. He just said, "Get some sleep." And that was worse than a lie. Because it was the truth. A truth heavy with exhaustion, with secrets he didn't trust me to carry. In that quiet moment between us, I knew, love hadn't disappeared. It had turned into something else, something fragile, twisted with longing, riddled with suspicion. And maybe, just maybe, something dangerous. The next morning, Marcus was already gone before I woke up. No note. No scent of him left on the sheets. Just the cool emptiness of a king-sized bed that hadn't held real warmth in months. I stared at the ceiling, trying to remember the last time we made love without it feeling like a performance, like actors rehearsing a script they barely believed in. By the time I got to the kitchen, the coffee was cold in the pot. That's when I noticed it, his phone, left behind on the counter. Marcus never left his phone unattended. It was practically glued to him, like an extension of his hand, always face down, always silent. Something in me shifted. It was an opportunity. A betrayal. A lifeline. My hand trembled as I unlocked it. His passcode was still our wedding anniversary. The first thing I saw was a name, no last name. Just a single letter, tucked into the top of his message list like it belonged there. The last message read, "You're not being careful. She'll notice." Sent at 1:13 a.m. A breath caught in my throat. That was the same night he touched me again, the night I thought maybe he was trying. Was he just trying to cover his tracks? Before I could open the rest of the messages, the garage door opened. Marcus was back. I tossed the phone onto the counter and pretended to sip coffee, heart racing like a rabbit cornered in a trap. He walked in, casually wiping rain from his jacket, and kissed the top of my head like everything was fine. Like I hadn't just seen proof of something unraveling. "You're up early," he said, his voice smooth. Too smooth. "Couldn't sleep," I replied, watching his eyes, too quick to scan the counter. He noticed the phone. He noticed everything. Later that evening, I visited Claire, my childhood best friend, the only one who still knew the language of my silences. We sat in her backyard under the soft golden light, sipping wine, talking about nothing and everything. "I don't know what's happening to us," I confessed. "He's there, but he's not with me." Claire hesitated, her eyes flickering with something she wasn't sure she should say. Then she whispered, "Alina, there's a rumor at his firm. Something about a woman. They say it's more than an affair. They say she's connected to something dangerous." I laughed bitterly. "Dangerous how?" She just looked at me. Like she's not who she says she is. And neither is Marcus. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed beside a man I no longer recognized. And I began to wonder, was I married to a stranger, or something worse? Rain tapped against the windows like whispers neither of us could bear to speak aloud. Marcus sat across from me at the dinner table, eyes focused on the glass of wine in front of him, not on me. The silence between us had grown thick, no longer empty, but heavy with unsaid things, with questions I was too scared to ask and answers he refused to offer. I reached for his hand. My fingers brushed his. He didn't move away, but he didn't hold on either. That simple gesture, once so effortless, so natural, now felt like reaching across a void that might never close. "Do you still love me?" I whispered, the words almost breaking on my tongue. His jaw tightened. He didn't look at me. "Don't ask me that." "I have to," I said, my voice trembling. "Because I'm drowning here, Marcus. And you won't even say if you see me struggling." For a second, something flickered in his eyes, regret, maybe. Or sorrow. He reached out, slowly, and tucked a strand of my hair behind my ear, like he used to. The warmth of his fingertips sent a shiver down my spine, not because it felt good, but because it felt like a memory. "I don't know how to love you anymore," he said finally, his voice hoarse. "I don't even know who I am when I'm with you." The words hit like glass cracking inside my chest. I wanted to scream, to cry, to beg him to fight for us. But all I could do was stare at the man I had built my life around, and feel it crumbling, piece by aching piece. "I saw the messages," I said quietly. From R. Marcus didn't flinch. He simply leaned back in his chair, his eyes shadowed. It's not what you think, he said. But it's not nothing either, is it? I asked. He looked at me then, really looked. And in his gaze, I saw everything we'd lost. Passion turned to secrecy. Intimacy replaced by guilt. And still, I wanted him. Even in the middle of betrayal. Even as my heart shattered. Because part of me still believed in the man he used to be. The silence after my question, but it's not nothing either, is it? Was deafening. Marcus didn't answer. He stood slowly, walked to the window, and stared out at the rain like he needed the storm to speak for him. I can't explain everything, he said finally, voice low, gravelly. Not because I don't want to. But because if I do, you might never forgive me. I rose from the table, following him. I've already forgiven things I didn't even understand, Marcus. What could possibly be worse than silence? He turned to face me. She's not just someone I knew. She's someone I used to love. Before you. The words burned. I blinked, stunned. Before me? She came back. Not by accident. She found me. And she made me choose. My heart stammered. Choose. She gave me an ultimatum, help her, or she exposes something I did. Something from before us. Something that could destroy more than just this marriage. There it was. Not just infidelity. Not just emotional absence. But blackmail. Secrets rooted deeper than I'd ever imagined. But before I could ask more, a knock came at the door. A slow, deliberate knock that didn't match the rhythm of rain. Marcus went pale. I moved first. My hand on the knob. My heart in my throat. Alina, wait, don't, Marcus's voice cracked, but it was too late. I opened the door. There she stood. Tall. Elegant. Raven dark hair curled perfectly around high cheekbones. Eyes that didn't flinch when they met mine. She smiled, not with warmth, but with a kind of practiced grace that made my skin prickle. I'm sorry to intrude, she said, her voice as smooth as silk sliding across skin. I'm R. And you must be the wife. Her eyes lingered too long on Marcus. And too knowingly on me. Before I could speak, she stepped inside as if she'd already been invited. She smelled like jasmine and danger. Marcus didn't stop her. And I couldn't breathe. There was something about her. Something magnetic. Something that made me feel like I wasn't just losing my husband, I was losing the truth, piece by piece. Why are you here? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She looked at me, smile fading. Because Marcus and I have unfinished business. And so do you, Alina. The rain had stopped, but the tension inside the house hung like mist, thick, suffocating, electric. I stood between them. Between the woman who had haunted our marriage from the shadows, and the man who once promised me forever. Marcus looked at me, lips parted, like he wanted to speak but didn't know which lie would hurt the least. I'm done playing games, I said, my voice steady, even though my hands were trembling. Tell me the truth. All of it. Marcus stepped forward, gaze locked to mine. I was in love with her before I met you. We were reckless. Wild. She disappeared after, something happened. Something that could have ruined me. She said she'd buried it, but now she's back. And she wants more than revenge, she wants to pull me back into her world. R leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. I didn't come to ruin you, Marcus. I came to remind you of who you really are. I am who I am because of Alina, he said, finally turning to me. She saved me from that life. From myself. For a moment, the room went still. My chest tightened. I saw it then, the truth in his eyes. Not just guilt. But love. Raw, wounded, desperate love. The kind that doesn't always protect you, but stays, even when everything else breaks. I stepped toward him. Then show me. Choose me. Not with words. With truth. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a USB drive. This has everything, he said. Records, messages, the leverage she had. If I give it to you, we don't just walk away from her, we burn the last bridge to who I used to be. I took the drive. My hand closed over his. Then, our smiled. Clever girl, she said softly. But you should know, you were never the only one watching him. She handed me a second drive. My heart dropped. It's from before he met you, she said. Something he never told you. Something I kept, in case he ever broke my heart. Marcus's face drained of color. I didn't say a word. I just stared at the two drives in my hands, one full of his sins, the other full of secrets I hadn't known to fear. And that's when I realized, love is not about what you're willing to forgive. It's about what you're ready to know. A week passed. The rain finally gave way to golden sunlight, but it didn't warm the spaces Marcus once filled. He left that night, quietly. No fight. No final plea. Just a look that said, I'm sorry, and a silence that spoke louder than any apology ever could. I watched him drive away, two lives tucked into the trunk of his car, his and the man he used to be. I didn't open either USB drive for days. I couldn't. I wasn't afraid of the truth. I was afraid that knowing it would steal what little love I had left for him. When I finally did, I watched it alone, wrapped in the same sweater I wore the day we first moved in together. The contents were worse than I imagined. His past was riddled with recklessness, illegal transactions, secret accounts, and one particular moment, a betrayal of someone who once trusted him the way I had. And yet, what hurt more than what he did before me was realizing how long he carried it without telling me. Not the action. The silence. The second drive, the one I had given me, wasn't about exposing him. It was about forcing me to choose, forgive him and pretend, or see him completely and walk away. I chose me. Claire helped me pack the last box a month later. The house no longer felt like home. Just four walls that had held too many secrets and not enough laughter. I moved into a small loft above an art cafe. The windows were cracked with light. It smelled like coffee and peace. I started writing again. Just small thoughts, about love, about women who forget themselves in someone else's story. And about finding your way back. Some nights, I still dream about him. Not the man he became. But the one who used to trace the freckles on my back and tell me I was his calm in the storm. Love isn't always meant to last. Sometimes it's meant to wake you up. If you've ever had to walk away from someone you still love, then maybe you know, real strength isn't in holding on. It's in knowing when to let go.